we're going to make, hands down, probably our favorite soup. So while I'm doing the inventorying and the decluttering and everything involved with the January Pantry Challenge, I discovered that we have a crisis in our house. It's called one jar left of split pea soup. What? That's not good. That is hands down probably one of our favorite soups. We have it fairly often. And so, yeah, now's the time to restock because I think we have at least 8 more weeks of horrible cold weather. And yeah, this makes just everything better. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SuttonsDaze. If you're new here, my name is Lisa, and we are all about pantry preparedness and Canuary. Yes, welcome to Canuary. That is the month where we bring you a video every single day of the month having to do with canning. I hope that you check it out and make sure that it is a video that has this logo because that's the important part. Remember to leave a comment. So the star of the show today is split peas. Yes, and I get my split peas from Palouse brand. We go through quite a bit of them. This is a 3-pound bag, and I love it. Now, here's the really cool part. Palouse said, hey, we want to help you out a little bit. And so if you use the link down below or the code Sutton at the website, then you get 10% off your split peas. Yes, because can you ever have too many? No, you cannot. This is a super simple recipe. It's from the Ball Complete Book of Preserving, I believe. And we're going to get busy making some split pea soup. I know I saw a comment from a bunch of you saying that from a few years ago, that's how you ran across me and you learned how to can that way. So hopefully for anybody that's new and brand new to canning, this is something that's good for you too. I love some split pea soup. Split pea soup can be made vegetarian style. So that means using water as your broth, your base, okay? But in this instance, yes, I have more ham hocks in the freezer and now they are in the pot. And so this is the broth that I'm going to use for our split pea soup. I put in 16 cups. The recipe that I am showing you is double what is linked down below. So this is a 3-pound bag. I love these little bags. They come in handy for so many different things. So when you get it, you can just rip open that thread, just like a feed bag or a dog food bag or something like that. Super simple to do. Okay, once you get into the bag, there are your peas. They are loose in the bag. So, see, like that. And so I'm going to measure them out first because you only need a certain amount for the soup. And even though Palouse is officially no glyphosates or anything like that, you still want to rinse them off. It's just a good practice, okay? Because you never know. So, like I said, I'm doubling my recipe, so there's still a little bit left in there, which is good because it's emergency backup of split pea soup. I'm going to go rinse these off, and then I'll be back. Okay, my broth is heating up the house very nicely. It's a great way to add some moisture to the house. So I'm going to pull the ham hocks out of here. Exactly like I mentioned for the last video I did with the black beans, okay? This is a tested recipe. It's from Ball, which means they tested it. And adding either ham hocks or ham in a small amount, the amount that they tested it for, okay, it is perfectly safe to add to your soups, but there is no tested method for canning ham, just ham, because it's a very dense meat. When it's cured, it's much more dense, which means they can't be sure that the heat penetrates it, okay? So just like with the last one, I'm going to remove all of the fat that I can. We're going to take the bone out. I'm going to save the meat. With the recipe, you'll notice that it calls for about a cup of meat. And that's all you need. It's just in there for taste. And honestly, the flavor from that broth is going to provide you with amazing, amazing taste. However, if you are doing a vegetarian, which you absolutely can, there are options for you to make that happen also. And it depends, honestly, I like split pea and ham. They also call it habitant soup, but I like it, and I like it whether it's vegetarian or whether it's with meat. So your call. And for what seems to be a serious influx of vegetarians that are viewing lately, yes, I know. I really do. Okay. So we're going to get all of this meat off there. Okay, so now I've got my ham chunks, right? I've taken all the super fat off there. I'm going to beat it up just the way that I did with the black bean soup. You don't want really big chunks. You just want it kind of, just short of shredded, I guess. If you do not have a ham hock, yes, you can buy that cubed ham at the store. Absolutely. It's already pre-cubed. You don't have to do anything with it. It's just the right size. And you can use that. So any way that you want to acquire that. If you have a spiral ham from the holidays, if you have the ham bone left over, right? Definitely. I get a lot of comments about my knife because you guys see it in all my videos. The link is down below for my knife. It is super sharp and it is awesome. Be careful if you get it because it's super sharp. Okay, so we've got all of this beautiful ham hock now. And so I'm going to get this into the pot. This is going to be the easiest setup ever. The ingredients are not very much for this soup, which make it very affordable. Because depending on where you're at, if you buy the little pre-cut ham chunks, it's under $5 for sure. And you can hear Shadow down below asking for some tasty treats. Okay, so I'm going to turn the heat back on here. The ingredients for habitat soup or split pea soup are super simple. You can decide, again, whether it's vegetarian or not, okay? And then you're going to take your rinsed and washed split peas and you're going to put them in here. Why do I have to rinse them and wash them if they're, glyphosate free and everything else? Because there can still potentially be stones in there. I didn't find any, but it happens, It comes from the earth. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to dump those all in there. And because I am working with what I have, carrots and onion, that's also in there. And so I'm going to do the equivalent. I'm using Thrive. You can use Thrive in canning. Yes, you can. You can totally use Thrive in canning, okay? So I'm going to put the equivalent of the carrot and the onion measurements, which are in the recipe, okay, into the soup. There we go. And we're going to turn this back on and let it heat up. Let's talk about the soup for a minute, okay? Split pea soup, if you've ever had it, can become very, very thick. Very thick. And so when we are creating this right now, we are going to cook it so that the split peas cook down, but that it's not super thick. Density is an issue with canning, right? So we're going to let this simmer. We're going to let the split peas cook down. We're going to let all of these amazing flavors incorporate. Add salt and pepper to taste. I do it after I open the jar. And I will show you as we get cooked down the consistency of the soup. And then tomorrow, I'll show you what it looks like when we open up a jar, because it will get thicker as you can it. I mean, thicker, okay? That's why when it goes in, we don't want it to be super thick. It will thicken up during the canning process. There's no way to avoid it unless it's super soupy when you put it in the jar. So, but it's super simple to thin out when you go to heat it up. I don't thin it out when I heat it up. I heat it up in a pan and I just stir it around and it just naturally loosens up when you heat it up. However, if you do want it thinner, because some people do, then you just add a little bit of water. It's something you got to play with, But I like a thick split pea soup. Do you? Throw it in the comment section down below. I ended up adding some more water to the pot because it was way too thick, okay? So you're going to have to adjust it as needed. I don't know why the recipe is like that, but it is. So, yeah. Okay, so you can see through the steam, the peas are really starting to break down. And that's good. That's what we want. Now, I can remember when I was growing up that my mother would put a big pot on like this. and just let it simmer all day long. This took a little less than an hour to get to this point. So that's not the same, but it's close, and it'll taste the same by the time we're done, okay? So that is what we're going to start scooping in to the jars. This is going to be fun. You always want to keep an eye on this too, because it will scorch because the peas are on the bottom and it's thick. And so you want to go in there and you want to stir it every 10, 15 minutes or so. I have my jars, they're all clean. I have my funnel, and we are going to start filling some jars. I'm also going to get some water into my canning pot and get that heating up while we're doing this. I'm going to be doing 1.5 pint jars. We have discovered through trial and error that a quart is a little bit too much, and a pint is not quite enough, So we like the 1.5 pint jars. You can get these now through Azure Standard. There's a link down below. If you click on that, you can see whether or not there's a drop near you, and possibly become a customer, if nothing else, for the jars. And what's nice is they sell them with and without the rings. Yeah, so you don't have to add to your ring collection. Now you want to make sure that you keep stirring this, because everything will settle, and so you want to make sure that you're stirring it as you go, okay? And we're going to fill these to 1 inch headspace. Now, if you just want to do pint jars, then that's great. You can those for the pint time, and you can the 1.5 pints for the quart time. I have to look at that. I can't read off the top of my head. What is it, Lisa? I will find out and I will let you know. But you want 1 inch headspace on these. So do a stir and then put it in there. And as you can tell right now, it's very soupy. Okay. Would I eat this way? I could. Do I want to? No. Because I do like it thicker. And typically split pea soup is thicker than this, right? But I intentionally left it where it isn't as thick, because it will continue to cook during the canning process, and it will thicken up. You're going to be amazed at how much this thickens up. But it's all good. We talk about heat, thermal shock, all that kind of fun stuff, right? So this is a very hot soup. You can see all the steam coming. And so we want to make sure that the water in our canner is hot, because if we put the jars with the hot soup into a canner with cold water, it will cause thermal shock. It will break your jars most likely. And then you've wasted time, money, and a perfectly good jar. So hot is the way to do it. What if I make the soup one day and want to can it the next day? Then you have to heat it up, because the instructions from the tested recipe, the way that they tested it, is from the hot point, okay? So having it cold will not be at the same temperature, obviously, that they tested it, so it's not the right way to do it. A tested recipe is just that, scientifically tested to make sure that it is safe and make sure that you will get the best product out of it, okay? So if you go off script, you are negating that testing and potentially putting you and yours at risk. If you haven't seen the lady with the green beans that got food poisoning, it's worth a look-see, and then you can decide whether or not you think it's worth going off script, because no, it's not. Okay, food poisoning, botulism particularly, is no joke and not something you should take lightly. So the good news is this filled 8 jars after I added that liquid to it. Plenty of, contents in the jar. And there's actually a little bit left over. Probably less than a pint left over. Okay, so now we are going to wipe the rims. I use vinegar and a paper towel. You can use water if you want, doesn't matter. The point of this is to get any debris off of the rings so that there's nothing getting in the way of that sealing, okay? So you want to make sure that you do each one. You used a funnel. Do you still need to do it? Yes, you do, because even with a funnel, it's gonna get stuff on the ring, okay? And I mean, it's not a lot, but you can see it. It's on, it's on there. So that's something you want to make sure that you are doing because, well, you know, this takes time and this takes money and we don't want to waste that. So you can see already how that's starting to separate, right? Because it's not completely cooked yet, because we want to make sure that we're not doing it, you know, too thick before we put it into the jar. So now the lids, and what? Canuary. It's Canuary, my friends, and that is sponsored by 4Jars. 4Jars Canning Company. They are phenomenal. Yes, they are. It's an amazing ring, a great compound. I have epic sealing rates with this. This is a company that was there from us when the old standby said, nah, we don't care. Okay. So I am forever a 4Jars gal, and I treat companies the way that they treat me, quite honestly, and I vote with my dollars. So that's how I'm voting. I hope that you do too, because having a good quality product just makes the entire thing worthwhile. Now we're going to put the rings on. Yes, we are. Okay, so we're going to do it finger tight. That means these two fingers right here, until it stops turning, finger tight. You want to make sure that you're not cranking it on, okay, because that will create, it doesn't leave the opportunity for air to vacate. So when we have the headspace, it's an inch headspace, right? When we have that headspace during the canning process, it's going to vacate that headspace, and that lid is secure enough but loose enough so that it can vacate the headspace, okay? But if you crank the ring on, it will cause the lid to buckle. It will cause the lid to, you know, not seal, any number of things. So I had a question because somebody's like, my lids didn't ping. My lids didn't make that noise. That's not a guarantee of success or failure. And with the lids, you know, since the pandemic, it's rare to find them other than the original company where they do ping. It's not a necessary component though. That is not part of the canning process. That is just a byproduct of how the lids are made. These lids are so great that it just goes in. You can see, which I will try to show you here. You can see how that's kind of pushed up. So it will not be like that when the time comes, you know, when they seal, but it won't necessarily make a sound. Is it cool? Was that, you know, we can always look back and say, oh, the good old days when lids used to ping, you know, whatever. It's not a requirement for a successful canning session. So now my water is heating up very nicely. There's steam coming out of there. So I'm going to get these in. The little bit of soup that's left in the pot, I am actually going to put into a container, and I'm going to heat it up tomorrow for lunch, because nothing goes to waste in this house. No, it does not. Okay, so we're putting all of these in. So hot jars into hot water. How much water's in your canner, Lisa? 3 inches of water is in my canner, okay? That is what you want in there. And in with 1.5 jars, you can get 8 1.5 jars into the canner. It's fantabulous. Okay, according to my recipe, I had to go look. According to my recipe, it is 75 minutes for pints or 90 minutes for quarts. This is a thick soup, so I'm kind of good with that, you know. That is what I have written down from the recipe in the book. So that's what I'm going to go with. We are doing 1.5, so we are going to do it for 90 minutes. So this is going to heat up, and it's going to develop a steady stream of steam. Once it does that, we're going to set our timer for 10 minutes. It's going to vacate all the excess air out of the canner. That is a big part of the process. You are not getting an accurate reading if you are not doing that, which means you are not canning safely, okay? So you want to make sure that you let that vent a steady stream of steam for 10 minutes. I can't see it, Lisa. Okay, but you can audibly hear it. So when you audibly hear it, hold up a canning lid behind that. Don't do it with your hand. My gosh, that's steam, okay? And you will see that steam coming out. Once you're at that point, set a timer for 10 minutes. And once that 10 minutes is over, then you put your regulator on. Now, I am using the 4Jars pressure canner. I love this. It literally never leaves this spot. Okay, it's always up there because I use it all the time. And theirs has a weighted regulator. Super cool. Okay, so when it reaches that 10 minutes of a steady stream of steam, we will put the weighted regulator on there. When that starts doing a little hula dance, we will adjust the flame to keep it at a hula dance. You don't want it like, it's at a mosh pit someplace, okay? And once you do that, you set your timer for the processing time, whether that's 75 minutes or 90 minutes. We'll be back when we pull these out of the jar, or out of the canner, yeah. Now comes the fun part. Okay, so it is completely depressurized on its own. I have been a little heavy-handed with the wood stove tonight, so it's like 82 in the house right now. So I'm going to pull this off, just tip it to the side for a second, let, you don't want them to siphon. And if the temperature, changes too quickly, then even at this point, the jars will siphon, which is not what we want. And now, dun 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 dun. Okay, come on, get in there, Lisa. Get in there. Okay, this is gonna be so good. Okay, now, as you pull them out, you're gonna go, Lisa, they don't look any thicker. Trust me, friends, trust me. I mean, look at that, look at, yeah. Tomorrow morning, you're going to see the difference. It's absolutely amazing. So we have 8 1/2 pints, and I have I think it's a 4-cup bowl in the refrigerator with what was left over. So I think that's what Phil's going to have for dinner tomorrow. Yeah. Don't tell. Here we go. It smells so good. God, I love split pea soup so much. This is gonna be great. So I'm going to leave these overnight. The house does not get super cold, the heater does kick on. So these are going to set at room temperature overnight. Let's see. In the morning, I'll show you the lids and how we did. I think we're going to do fine. I think it's all fine because there's nothing inside the canner. And I'll show you how thick it is as it cools down tomorrow. It is the next morning. Isn't that just great? Poof, just like that. It's the next day. Okay, so they have sat overnight. They all pinged. Life is a beautiful thing. And what I want you to notice, okay, because I get questions on this, is the separation. Okay, and that's normal. It happens. Not a big deal. It's, the very liquidy stuff is up top. The more solid has gone down to the bottom while it processed in the canner. Because remember, when you're canning stuff, you are cooking it at the same time. So now, see, that's some thick soup. That's some thick soup. So I'm going to go like this. Okay. And it's still, yeah, it'll take a spoon to get that out of the bottom. But there we go. See, look at that. But as you put it all into the pot, it will combine into a beautiful thick soup. And you can thin it out if you want. Like I said, I don't for me. I don't find the need to do it. I'm going to try to get it to combine. Okay, come on. There we go. A little bit while we're here. But, I mean, it's still got that super thick stuff on the bottom. And it'll come out with a spoon. It's awesome that way. It might let go in there while we're talking. So this is split pea soup. It is an approved, tested recipe. That's why we know that it's safe, okay? And you can do this too. If you like split pea soup, this is an oldie but a goodie. I've done split pea soup on the channel before, but I thought that with some new canners on board, it would be a good thing to show because, split pea soup, it's good. As a reminder, now we can take the lids off, right? And it's fine. You're still going to want to wash the jar. I had no siphoning. This is just beautiful. I mean, I love it. I had no siphoning, but you still want to run a warm, soapy dishcloth over it. Not hot, warm. And just, it's good practice. It's a good thing to do every time you can, because if you don't, you could end up with critters. There's stuff that if it did siphon a little bit would be right underneath this. And it could draw pests, which we don't want to do because Pests are no fun. No uninvited guests into the pantry, okay? So I'm going to get these washed up. I'm going to label them. I'm going to put them up on the shelf, and we are good. I hope that you're enjoying this Canuary. We're halfway through the month. There's only half to go now. It's fantastic. Thank you, 4 Jars, for sponsoring Canuary. I just love these lids. I love these lids. If you want to check out the rest of the videos, check out this playlist for Canuary 2025. Remember, it has to have that purple logo on it. And we will see you next time. Remember, everybody, be safe and stack it to the rafters, my friends.